everybody. Welcome to day one of Psychic Evolution. So I am your host, Carrie Cardoso. I am the Soul Prophet. For those of you who do not know me, I am a master psychic, healer, and energy worker, and I also activate psychic abilities and energy connections in others. This right here is day one. It's on 22222 of Psychic Evolution. This series is all about activation, integration, and embodiment of your soul's gifts. Now, one of the reasons that I created this series was to help people to begin to understand what being a psychic and holding the power of psychic abilities and of energy working and healing really looked like and what it took to get to different levels. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be interviewing an array of different clients of mine at different levels with different abilities, many different experiences that they have had, really just to be able to show you what it looks like to open up your psychic abilities, to learn to trust, to begin to expand, so that you too can begin to understand what you can do in order to start activating and tapping into your psychic abilities, because right now the world is asking more and more for you to be tapping into your abilities. So as you are joining me, please say hello and let us know that you are joining us. And I would like to introduce to you the very first amazing woman that I am having a conversation with. And she is not only a client, but she is also absolutely a dear friend of mine. So welcome, Danielle. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on here, Carrie.
I'm so excited. I know we're going to have so many fun things to talk about. So I'm going to let Danielle introduce herself, but I just really want to quickly say this is Danielle Sikursky. She is an intuitive soul guide, and she is such a beautiful soul. And so I'm going to let you just a little bit share who you are and what you do before we dive deep into the things that we've experienced together.
Yeah. So again, I'm Danielle, and I have been working with Carrie for about 2 years now. And I am a intuitive soul guide. So I like to use the word guide rather than healer, or because the work that we do and that I've worked so much with Carrie on is that we guide people, and that it's when we work with people, it is really a partnership in a healing journey versus going in and just telling people what they need to know. It's really about us guiding people through the process. And that's what I love to do. As a soul guide, in my work right now, I really love connecting people with their heart space and with their soul to really connect with who they are at their core. And that builds self-trust, self-love, and self-expression, which are a super potent combination together.
And I think it's so beautiful what you do and how you've done it, because so much of what you share with your clients and with people that you work with are things that you went through. And I really want to talk about this because I started working with you, I guess it's been 2 years now. I feel like it's been longer than that, but whatever. It is, however long. I feel like I've known you forever. So, and one of the really unique things about your experience is that most people come to me because they want to open up their psychic abilities and psychic gifts and really tap in. But you from the start came to me, and it was so clear for both of us that the first steps for you was really about a healing journey, was really about you connecting deep into yourself. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that and why, in your own perspective, we decided to do that before opening up your psychic abilities, and really how that helped you.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. So what made me reach out to Carrie initially was that I had always known that I was meant for something with a very deep purpose, and that felt very fulfilling in my heart, and that it was going to be around helping people, but on a level that was maybe not of this world fully. But I wasn't sure what that was going to mean. And so we started diving into that. And I knew that there was a ton of beliefs and things that I was holding on to that needed to be essentially healed prior to being able to do this work. Because as Carrie had mentioned, you lead best when you've been there yourself. And so much of the work that I do now is from the work that we've done together, as far as my own growth that I've gone through in the past few years. So
And
a lot of it, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
A lot of it had to do with my ability of self-love, of self-acceptance, of self-trust, and really diving deep into the core of who I was and what I was believing to be true about myself that I thought were truths that weren't real truths.
Yeah. And I think that was so powerful because I remember, and maybe you'll remember, one of the things that was so evident is that you were so frustrated with yourself and with life because you knew deep inside, which happens a lot to people, is that they have this feeling deep inside that they're meant for something so big and so profound and something that's going to change things. But everything that you were tapping into and everything that you were trying just didn't seem big enough. It didn't seem important enough. And so that was such a fueler behind the work that you did and the work that we did together, because you had this drive, but you didn't necessarily have the belief behind it or the trust behind it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the things that ended up being some of the thing that I realized was my true work, is having people understand that they have choices, and that because I kept following paths that were putting me at roadblocks, and that's where the frustration was coming from, that I felt like, I'm trying, I'm taking action, I'm doing these things that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing, and they never amounted to that fulfillment or purpose that I was looking for. And that's because I wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't connected to myself. And so I just kept following paths that had anything to do with me. They had to do with what I thought I should be doing. And that's obviously going to lead to a lot of frustration. And then the healing work is what we did to finally learn to really tap into what was my soul wanting? What did my heart say? And start following that path. And then life opens up.
And one of the things that I want to point out in regard to you, and it happens often, is that, like you said, we have this idea of how our journey is supposed to look, what we're supposed to be doing, how we're supposed to be tapping into it. And we do that with psychic abilities too. We have this belief that it's supposed to be a certain way. Like as we're opening up our psychic abilities, there's a clear path of steps you have to take in order to access your psychic abilities. But yours looked a little different, because within inside of our healing work that we did together, and whenever I work with people, we can't avoid the psychic aspect. Part of the healing work is psychic aspect. So right away, I started doing journeys with you. It wasn't just about me doing healings on you. We started right away doing journeys. And I don't know if you remember, I'm going to see if you remember, but there was something that really profoundly happened during, I don't think it was the first journey, but one of the first couple journeys that you were able to experience. Do you remember what that was?
My higher self?
Yes, but no, after that.
I'm not sure.
So, okay, I'm not going to quiz you on this. One of the things that we most often teach people to connect with are first their guides, but Danielle did not connect with her guides to start. They were not the first ones that came in. Who was the first one that you connected to? Which really, I know for me, it showed me that your belief and idea that you have a bigger purpose was confirmed right inside this journey.
Source energy.
Right. Yeah. Remember?
Yep, I do.
And
it's very special.
Yeah. And when you connected with Source Journey, what did that show you? Source energy. What did that show you inside that journey?
Well, I think that you kind of said it, that what that purpose actually was. But it's also the feeling of love. I think that was like one of the things that sticks with me most is the feeling of being in that presence and how big it is, but also how kind and accepting and all the things that I was there to do and I am there to teach, was that feeling alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And you did so much work around really loving yourself. Do you want to share a little bit about what you did around like learning to love yourself and what things that you had to look at in that journey? Because I know, one of your teachings and something you're really proud of is the fact that you hold your clients to taking responsibility for themselves. And instead of blaming other people for what's happened in their life or how things are going. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. That's exactly how I feel when working with people, because within my own life, I feel like we're always looking outside of ourselves when what we're truly looking for is when we're looking for ourselves. So what's required of us to do is to stop looking for tools and outside, just outside things, anything that you can grab onto, and learn to really tap into your own soul. So we did a lot of deep healing, and I'd like to just like tap on what that means, because I feel like we all brush over what the word deep healing actually means and like what we do with that. So deep healing for me was going in and doing journeys, as Carrie's mentioned, where you're talking to your guides and they're bringing forth information about you that will often make you cry. It's not just this cool outer experience. It's what you need to hear. Or it brings forth your inner child and what she or he needs to hear at this time, and be healed, because all of this energy is sticking around in our bodies from our past experiences. So looking at like, why didn't I maybe not trust myself? Why didn't I believe in myself? Why did I feel a big one for me? A big belief or truth that I held about myself was that I thought that, yes, choice is available for everybody and everyone can do awesome things, but it's not for me. And that was a huge insight to understand why that was and move past it. And then, and just being responsible for ourselves, because we can, as I mentioned before, I was taking a lot of action, but I wasn't working on the other aspects of myself, such as my mindset. So essentially, if your thoughts suck, then your life might suck, because they're all happening in unison, and it all creates our reality. So once we stop blaming other people and we stop blaming circumstances and understand that we can actually move outside of, we don't have to become who our parents were. We don't have to be where we came from. We can have the ability to expand and be more. And once we drop the fear around it as well, right? That's a huge one of like, how will I be perceived now? We can actually create our own lives. And that's what I love working with now, is getting people out of their own way, essentially.
Now, before we go into what you do now with clients and some of the things that you do with them, one of the other things that I think is really important about your journey, and I don't see it very often, but I have seen it with yours, is that the universe, I love the fact that whenever you're opening up psychic abilities for anybody, the universe has such a big say on how it's done. Like for me specifically, the universe really tailored how my abilities were brought forward and how I grew them. And for you, one of the things that was highlighted over and over and over again is that the universe wanted you alone. You constantly were put alone, in the sense that like you would travel someplace alone, you spent time at retreat places alone. The universe really separated you from the outside world, from people who were impacting you, so you could really focus on you. And I want you to share like how that affected you or helped you, and how you use that with your clients today.
Yes, that most certainly did happen. And it happened in some heartbreaking ways, because as healing does, I had to move through some challenging things in my life and reassess relationships and relationships in my life, that how they were affecting me and what I needed to do to be able to fully tap into myself and not take on other people's energies, because we do. And we don't even realize how much the people that are around us affect us on a day-to-day basis. Like one of the questions that are asked sometimes is like, is this mine or is this yours? Right. And nobody's taught to ask themselves that. But the time alone, because I do take on those energies before I was taking them on, I was unable to get clear with myself and have the space to really play with what we were doing. There was a ton of healing on my own that in solitude will bring all those things forward, but it was also an amount of play and like getting to know the person that I truly was versus the identity that I was holding.
Yeah. And we did yours really organic. You spent a month, I think, right? A month in the same town or similar town from where I live. And we would spend so many mornings. Her training was really different than anybody else's. We did more of a mentorship where we would walk 3 times a week, sometimes more. We'd meet once a week and we just would talk and she would ask questions. So it's really different because you learned at your own pace, at your own rate, and what needed to come forward when it did. We didn't sit down till you joined the academy and have really detailed lessons and structure. You really started learning just by picking my brain in conversation, in walks. And I think that's really beautiful because not all people are supposed to travel the same path. And so it allows you to be able to heal and do the stuff that you did on your own. And I know that in some way you bring that into your own client's experience now.
Yeah. Which was a very special time where I had to be in the same area as Carrie for about a month. And
you had to say that as if it was terrible.
What?
You said I had to be in the same area as Carrie. I said,
I got to be. I got to be. No, and that was truly amazing. And you're right. Like and I won't lie here. Like it was frustrating to not be moving along faster because all we want to do is push and like be where we think we should be. And like, it was organic because they weren't going to allow it to happen any other way, which is super important for other people that would like to open their abilities, know that like it's going to happen, how it's going to happen and how it's fit for you and on your healing journey and where you're at, because that's another source of frustration that can come forward when you want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. You want to be able to see, you want to be able to hear better. And like, that's not open for you at the time. But it's not supposed to be. So like finding kind of like a solace in the fact that you are exactly where you're supposed to be at all times.
Yeah. And you're right. People will say, well, can't you just activate my abilities? Can't you just do this? And they're looking for a specific meditation or a specific energy work or something profound that I do, when in reality, so much of it is knowledge based. So much of it is pulling you into that energy. So much of that is helping you to witness yourself and experience. And that's exactly what we did over the course of a month of just walking and talking and me sharing the things that I knew would help you in conjunction with the questions that you ask. Because there was times that you'd be like, well, can't you just tell me this? And I would be like, no, I cannot. And this is what I'm going to share with you today. And it was super organic and super fun. And I loved the fact that it was so different than anybody I've ever worked with before, because it was so natural, but also allowed you to be in the space that you needed to without pushing and forcing and trying to make things unfold.
Right.
It was beautiful. So I would love for you to share a little bit about how you work with clients, because I know one of your expertise, the things that you are so great at, is taking people through journeys. So you want to explain a little bit as to how you work with clients and, what you expect and what their outcomes are?
Yeah, sure. So one of the main things that I do is work with clients, as Carrie said, on journeys. So those are essentially, I like to describe them as as guided meditations at first, but instead of you just being guided, the person is actually in the energy as well. So we basically walk together through a journey to somewhere to meet someone, whether it be a guide or an inner child, your soul, speaking with your soul, working on your heart space, or uncovering a shadow aspect of something that could be holding you back. So we really just, for me, working with clients, it's setting the intention that whatever is the most important for them to know at this time comes forward. We can always work towards a specific goal, but usually whatever is meant to be said is going to be said anyway. That's most important at the time. So it's gaining that information and then working with people to whatever is uncovered to get through that on the backside of it too, because in those journeys there can be healing, but a lot of times it's information gathering to then do healing on the backside of it. And then I also do just reading energy of people's energy, because a lot of times we have a strong belief that we think something, but that's not actually what we're holding in ourselves. So this was one of the most eye-opening experiences throughout this whole thing, was that there were moments when if you asked me a question, I would say absolutely 100% XYZ. And then when we went in and looked at the actual energy of it, that was not my belief at all. So I wish I could give you an example, but all right, I'll just say it. I'll be vulnerable. But for my sister and I are twins, and we're super close. And so if you ask, would it be okay if I gained super success or she gained super success, would you be okay with it? And human Danielle says, oh, absolutely. I totally support her. Of course. But in my energy said something different. My energy said that would cause a separation between the two of us. We would then be different. So I'm not really okay with that. And that was shocking. And that's the kind of things that you get to uncover when you look at the energy of something versus just doing everything in your mind and logically.
Yeah. And I love, one of the things I want to share about Danielle that I still say to this day. So if you hear me say this, I'm talking about Danielle, is she is the first client who was brutally honest in the fact that she would say, well, do you want the right answer or do you want the true answer? Because one of the things that was very evident when I first met Danielle, she had done a lot of studying of spiritual stuff and understandings and teachings, and she'd been on a spiritual journey already. So she had all the right answers. But what I loved about her was that she would call herself on it. And she would say, I'd ask her a question. She's like, do you want the right answer or do you want the truthful answer? And I'd be like, I prefer the truthful one. We all know what the right answer was. And in the more that you dug in, it was so apparent that you were doing the work and that you were ready to be honest with yourself and to show up. And these big realizations, especially, with your sister and with your developing of your abilities and really standing on your own. And I think that goes back to why you had to be alone so much, is because you're a twin. You're the first set of twins that I've ever worked with in that regard. Like I've channeled for some, but I hadn't really worked with them. So it was new for me too. And I love that about my clients, is that every time I work with somebody, it teaches me something. So there was so many realizations and shifts and understanding of energy in regard to you being a twin that you had to work through in order to be able to truly stand on your own and acknowledge your success and have it be okay to be separate, because your energies were so intertwined. So, and I think that goes back to such a powerful reason why the universe was like, go hundreds of miles away and stay at a remote location and by yourself. It'll serve you well, because it really is about you trusting and connecting to yourself just as you.
Yep.
So one of the things, part of this series is to help people who are really interested in opening up their psychic abilities, tapping in, really understanding what it's like, because there is this idea out there that everybody's psychic journey is the same and you have to do X, Y, and Z in order to do that. So I'd love for you to share what's the most important thing that you would want to share with people in regard to learning to activate and open up your psychic abilities or your healing abilities. What is that one thing that you are like, you cannot forget this? You have to pay attention to this.
Well, I think, well, I have a few things, but my number,
go ahead.
well, my number one would be trusting yourself, because this is absolutely like, to be able to do this, you have to be able to trust yourself, and you have to be able to not judge yourself. The judgment part will hinder you from being able to do this at all, because the harder you are on yourself, like I mentioned, like people get really attached to wanting to open up certain types of abilities or be at a certain place, and it can really hold you back when you're just judging the process. Like, you literally have to sit back and be open to what you're hearing and believe what you're hearing, because it's different, and initially it's different. And you're like, am I just making this up? And you're not. Or sometimes you are. and Carrie will let you know.
Sometimes you are. Yes. Yes, you are.
But as she's mentioned, I do think that the healing aspect of it to start is very important. I know that my journey was my own journey, but it is about clearing our filters and about being able to openly receive information for other people without our own attachments to them. So that's why the healing process is absolutely essential. So I would say that my best advice for like starting the psychic journey is the healing process, to trust yourself, because the second guessing just causes more resistance and frustration. And then humility. If you are someone that is competitive or maybe likes to tell other people what to do, and it makes you feel a little, more powerful, I'm just being honest about this, and then this isn't necessarily for you, because what we desire for our clients has nothing to do with, like, shouldn't matter at all. It has nothing to do with it. And they're putting a lot of trust in us. And it's really an honor to hold the space for other people and deliver the messages that that spirit and source and their guides would like them to have, for them to live in their highest good and their highest purpose. And it's a really honorable and beautiful thing to be a part of. And so holding that, staying super grounded in who you are when you start, and remembering that, and that humility piece is super important.
Awesome. Second question, I have three. So second is, what was your favorite part about this whole journey? And I know it's not over yet. I know that there's so much more waiting to expand into, but what's been your favorite part? And I didn't prep you on this. I know that. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Well, I mean, obviously getting to know you and having you as my friend and mentor is my favorite part. But do you mean like abilities wise, or just like anything?
Anything.
I think my favorite part has been learning to trust myself and accept myself and be able to express truly who I am, and actually feeling like this thing that's been missing in my life was the connection to myself. And then my connection to myself has allowed me to expand and understand these abilities that I have and actually step into them. I mean, it's life-changing. It's who I am, and it's who I've always wanted to be. And there's no amount of money that can replace that feeling.
I love it. Aw. All right. And last thing, and this is something really personal to you, but it also totally supports what we're doing here in Psychic Evolution, is that I know from the moment I've met you that you have a really deep-seated passion in regard to the spiritual community and some of the things that are shared there, and really about bringing awareness and shifting and changing how the spiritual community is showing up in what they're talking about. So I want you to share a little bit about that. What is the message, or what is something that you want to share with people that you want to make sure that they understand in regard to the way that the spiritual community or psychic community is right now?
Yes, that is something that I feel passionate about. And I think this also speaks to like just to all spiritual seekers, is that there's a ton of information out there. And as Carrie mentioned before, like I dug deep into a lot of this stuff, but mine started out in yoga, and it started out in those principles, which personally I feel like are pretty grounded principles. So I didn't go kind of on the more magical side. And I feel like when we're trying to connect back to ourselves, as I mentioned before, when we're looking outside of ourselves to find ourselves. And that's kind of the issue with some of the spiritual ways that people are going about things, that the shiny things are obviously more attractive, right? So like the like working with crystals and working with rituals and working with like the magical things, the magical aspects of it, which we do, and they're awesome and they're tools, but they don't hold the answers that you're looking for. The answers that you're looking for are within your heart and within your soul. And so finding somebody of high integrity to guide you is the best way to do that, rather than getting caught up in some other things like astrology and human design. Like they're very useful tools, and I feel like they're very tangible tools, where what we do is harder to explain, like being tangible for someone. So that's why I think they really draw people. But yeah, and that we're all responsible for ourselves, because also in the spiritual community, you see a lot about the matrix and about like this kind of fear instilled aspect of things, where like something's being done to us and like we need to rebel against it. And I don't personally, what I believe should be happening is just what I just said, is like you realize that none of us are victims, nothing's happening to us. We allow things to happen to us, but we're always taught like no one's doing anything to us. So as long as we turn inside and say, how can I change my experience? That's enough rebellion. It doesn't have to be loud, and it doesn't have to be boisterous. It's quiet, and it's beautiful, and it's intimate, and it's individualized.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember so specific. It was an afternoon that we were spending together during our mentorship. And we were sitting on the couch, and you were sharing with me so many things that you'd been seeing in the spiritual community and people talking about, and you were asking me my opinion on them. And you were like, almost like scolding me because you're like, why don't you talk about these things? Why don't you answer people's questions? Why don't you tell people the truth? And it was so eye-opening to me. I didn't travel in the spiritual world for so long, and I still really don't. I only teach what it is that comes to me, what's shown, what they ask me to teach. And it was so, when you started sharing this stuff with me, it was so evident that there are a lot of things that are being shared that are not necessarily truths. And I think one of the most important things is to always connect back to you. It doesn't matter if it's a spiritual teacher. It doesn't matter if I'm the one saying it. It doesn't matter if it's a spiritual teacher, or an astrologer, or a psychic, or somebody reading cards. If it doesn't feel right to you, if it feels wrong, if it feels off, trust your feeling. Always lean into what it really feels like to you, because there is a lot of noise in the spiritual community. There is a lot of noise. I was talking to somebody this weekend, and we were talking about the fact that literally everybody reads cards. Everybody is a card reader, a tarot reader now. But there is a difference between reading cards and truly being psychic and tuning into the energy. And that's what we're working to promote. If you're a card reader, you have the ability to tap into the energy. You just have to learn how, and then more truth and more alignment comes through with these messages. And that's really what this series is about bringing that level of respect to being a psychic, to what we do. And we don't just tell people what to do, we show them how to access the information within inside of themselves, which is profoundly different than just telling somebody what to do.
Right. Exactly. Which is what the journeys do.
Yes.
As far as it's allowing somebody to experience rather than just being told and having to believe it or not believe it. But that's absolutely 100% true. And working with Carrie, I felt 1,000% safe in everything that I did, which is very important. Working with energy is not a joke. Like energy is very real. I mean, not in a scary way, but like there are like, you can like a snow globe, like you can kind of shake yourself up if you're not doing the right thing. So having the right mentor, like I never felt nervous about doing certain things with energy with Carrie. I always felt supported, safe, and she was always there no matter what, if I needed anything throughout this process. So, and I felt like working in the highest integrity and 100% authentic, which is it's beautiful, and unfortunately it's not that easy to find all the time either. So
I appreciate you. Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience? Any of your thoughts, ideas, suggestions, anything? And does anybody have any questions? I do see that you guys are commenting hello to everybody. And if you're watching the replay, please be sure to comment. Does anybody have any questions for Danielle regarding her journey or regarding what she's done or anything like that? Please be sure to ask. Or if you have questions for me regarding, I don't know, Danielle's journey, I don't know. Is there anything else you would like to share?
I don't think so. I just am super grateful for this experience and how it's changed my life. And yeah, and I just look forward to continuing to, because it never ends, right? The healing journey never ends, and the like the growing and expanding never ends. So I'm just so excited to see, you know, what else happens for me in my life and in my abilities, as they'll continue to grow as well. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And it's so true. I feel like every time you send me a message or a Voxer, there's something new that you've experienced, or you have these aha moments. And the thing about these aha moments is I can't replicate them. I can't give you an aha moment. I can give you information. I can share with you. I can tell you something over and over and over again, but you have to sit with it and experience it yourself. And listening to, even over the course of this year, 2022, you have had so many aha moments and so many shifts within inside your abilities and your coaching and your journeys that you take people on. It's been beautiful to watch. Absolutely beautiful. And I know you said it before, but I know this is just the beginning. I know that your title is going to change. I know that how you work with people is shifting. I know that more abilities are opening up. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about accessing abilities, is that they never stop. They continue to evolve and to shift and to change. And it's so amazing to see. And I cannot wait to see what you do and what happens for you in your future.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Were there any questions? Or
yeah, Elena has a question. There are. Elena says, can you talk a bit about what part of your journey where you had to be alone? Oh, can you talk a bit about that part of your journey where you had to be alone by your guides, and what kept you sane? So where you had to be alone. So she had to, and I'll let you talk. You didn't, I don't know, when you were alone, she had to be alone remote location wise. She spent a lot of time by herself, like alone. So during that time, Elena wants to know if you were connected to your guides and what it was like how did you keep yourself sane during that time?
Great question. Well, I hung out in nature a lot, and there was a dog on the property that I loved very much, and that he kept me sane. But was I connected to my guides? That's a good question. I do. Carrie, would you mind to explain that one for me?
Sure. So in regard to Danielle, she doesn't do as much connecting to her guides as she does connecting to herself, her soul, and her higher self. So she did a lot of connecting with the energy that she holds around her and connecting with universal energy, which would also be like an example of source energy. So she spent a lot of time listening to the sides, listening within. Her soul would come forward and talk. She spent a lot of time taking inner journeys and allowing her energy to show her what she needed to show. She is one of my clients that does very little connection with actual guides. She can, but she just doesn't. It's not necessarily who she relates to. And I think this is so important because people oftentimes will push guides, and I'm like, no, don't work with the guide. Like, don't. And it's not because the guide's bad, but the way she works and what she does is very different, and use guides sometimes. But during that period, it was really about uncovering yourself and connecting deeply with the energy that you held within, and your higher self was always coming forward.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I spent a lot of time laying on the floor. I stretched, I worked out, I cried a lot, I journaled, and I was in the midst of building this business too. So, you know, I had built out a program at that time, which kept me busy, but and that I didn't end up actually launching, but it holds a ton of information for me that I was essentially channeling at that time. So, and I have it there to look at and to remember, and it will eventually, I'm sure it'll eventually turn into something else.
Yeah. And you did a lot of meditations, tons of meditations during that time. And even, I do remember a couple of times, like just different experiences of like different, an attachment coming forward once, that we had to clear, just different things that you were able to experience just by being. And I think that's so important. Like we want to push, we want to learn, we want to uncover all that we can, but so much of your journey was about you allowing, even through resistance, but allowing and experiencing what came forward and learning on the go as it came forward.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, because like you learn to feel what different energies feel like. And being alone allowed me to tap into that and be able to realize when something was high integrity and not so high integrity, and what my soul felt like and what my higher self felt like, because they're different and all those things.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Heidi says, was there a particular aha moment that stands out the most during your journey?
Yes. Carrie would talk, when I first met her, she would talk a lot about the energy, and I didn't understand at first, obviously, what it meant to see the energy or to feel the energy. I was like, what does that mean? And it's very hard to describe. So Carrie went and got a few crystals for me. And she said, close your eyes. And she handed me different ones and asked me to tap into their energy and tell me about them. And I was able to, which I was shocked. that was like my first, like, really aha, oh my goodness, like I actually can do this. And that was a wow for me, but also a wonderful way. Like, again, like she can tell you stuff, but you have to be able to integrate it to yourself. And so like, that was such a great teaching moment and aha moment for me.
Yeah, I remember that. I forgot about that. You just said that. And that's the thing, like when you're building your psychic abilities, again, I cannot say it enough. It is not a one and done deal. Like I do different things with every single person or every single group of people, depending on what they need at that time. Like I could have handed her a crystal. That was probably 6 months after we started working together. We did all the healing work, and then you were at this location with me. And that was 6 months. And if I had handed her the crystals a month before, it wouldn't have been the same experience. If I had handed them to her probably even a week before, it wouldn't have been the same experience. And so you have to do things in alignment with where you're ready and what your soul needs. And then you truly get that transformation. But you were spot on with them. I forgot all about it. Yeah. And I think that was at a time where like, you really didn't do crystals. I don't even know how much you do crystals now, but like, you don't really know much about crystals. So I was handing her crystals. And it made her close her eyes, which is pointless because she doesn't know crystals anyway, but it helps her to tap into that energy. But you were spot on. I forgot all about that. That was a good story. We have so many stories we could probably share. Okay. Elena says, I understand. That's the same with her. She doesn't really connect with guides anymore. Okay. So somebody asked, what would a journey look like for your client? Oh, that's a really great example. We want to share what a journey looks like for your client.
Yeah, sure. What would a journey look like? So as I said, like, that's why I like to say it as like a guided meditation for people that haven't done journeys before, that you sit down and you just get comfortable, you relax as if you were going into a meditation. And then I guide you through what's happening. So we bring in energy to support you and whatever you need at the time. And then we travel to somewhere. And then whatever's around has symbolism or is symbolic to whatever you need to know at the time. And oftentimes a guide will step forward, or an inner child will step forward, or whatever it is that needs to step forward for you to hear at that moment in time. And sometimes it's just tapping into your own soul, and you won't necessarily see that. It'll be more of maybe, well, I guess it just depends on the person, but for me, it's usually a feeling. And oftentimes people I work with, it's a feeling as well, or color or something.
Yeah. Journeys really allow you to, what I like about journeys, what I teach my clients to do journeys, is because I can give you the information. I could take you and say, okay, your soul is saying this, your inner child is saying this, this is what happened in a past life. But and it's great. It's powerful. And people are like, oh my gosh, tell me more. But the shift that occurs and happens when you specifically, the person, the client, gets to experience it for themselves. It's not coming out of my mouth. I can hear it and I can see it when they're in the journey. Danielle can hear and see what you're experiencing, but you get to hear it for yourself. You get to see it for yourself. You get to experience it for yourself. So it creates a whole nother level of shifts within inside of people and power. Like if you're realizing these things yourself, it taps you into a whole different level of your own personal power. So that's why I like to teach my clients who are able to and ready to hold and facilitate journeys for their specific clients. It's just a powerful tool, and you are amazing at it. Danielle's amazing at it. I watch journeys that my clients do. So I've watched multiple ones of her journeys, and they're powerful, super powerful. All right, let's see. Elena says, it sounds like a really rich experience. Thank you for the reply, Danielle. Hi, everybody. Hello. Everybody says, great experience. Totally understand not being able to recognize energy, Donna says. Journeys are so, so powerful. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Absolutely loved it. Thank you for being such a great first guest. I know this is day one and I was away all weekend, so you're kind of just thrown right into it. You did amazing. Amazing. Absolutely love you. Thank you so much for sharing and for being a part of my journey too. You know, one of the things, I've said it before on this call, I'll say it again, is that every single experience that I have with clients, whether it's in a group program or individual, is so unique. And it is a lasting energy on me. There's things that I learn and get to experience and grow with each of my clients. And over the course of the next 2 weeks, we're going to take you into some of these experiences. Like Danielle and I could probably sit here for hours and talk about different things that she's experienced with me that we did together. But so I'm just going to take you into a glimpse of all of the different ways that it's possible to start opening up your abilities and really master who you are in order to be able to share your gifts. Right now is a time that we are opening up our abilities. The universe, the energy of the world is asking people to step into their power. This is a fated year. And so my hope is that during the course of these 2 weeks, you can begin to start building that possibility and that belief in yourself to begin to open up your psychic abilities. Thank you guys all for joining. And I will be here live again tomorrow. Let me tell you what time. I'm having the beautiful Elena on here tomorrow, and it's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you did not register for this, you're going to want to register. I'll put the link above. What it's going to do is it's going to tell you every morning what time we're going live, who it's with. It's also going to give you an opportunity to sign up to a couple special events that I have, where I'm going to bring some of my psychics together, where they're going to talk about a topic. We're going to do some channeling for you. One of the psychics that I trained might take you through a journey. So if you want to experience all of these amazing things, make sure you sign up in the link above and follow me right here on this page. Thank you guys for joining. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you again, Danielle, for joining.
Of course, thanks for having me.
And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Oh, she got off.